You have to make sure also that the development is for all. The difficult situation in which many countries are is not due to the sanctions. They're against the Russian regime, the people around Putin himself. The rules have been broken. We're trying to find a way of making this war stop. And we've never let any countries down. And the question is, can we find solutions and open up for opportunities together? There are trucks arriving to the borders of Europe and not mentioning that, in fact, this is GSP+, so they're paying taxes. The market in Europe is full of clients, but they are very demanding. He told me, you have to go to all the regions, more bicycles.
Your Excellency, thank you one more time for agreeing to this interview and hosting us here. The European Union and Uzbekistan announced that the negotiations for an enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement are completed now. And we had a couple of questions to ask for your comments on that regard. Could you please tell us what are the priority areas that EU will work on together with Uzbekistan in frame of this new agreement?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this interview, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about the EU, and in particular at this time with the Enhanced Partnership and Cooperation Agreement. Now is initial, as you said. This is, for us, this is a real milestone. In fact, this is the time when, last week was in Brussels, the time when, in fact, we announced the end of the negotiation. So it's just initialing the papers. But it's the end of, in fact, 3 years, more than 3 years of negotiations between the two chief negotiators. And not only the two chief negotiators, but a lot of people have been behind the negotiations for this partnership and cooperation agreement. And what is important is that you've had 10 rounds of negotiations. You've had more than 150 meetings to discuss, in fact, what this enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement will look like. Maybe just to say that currently we have what we call the Partnership and Cooperation Agreement, and we've had this since 1996. This is our legal framework, in fact, for the cooperation between the EU and Uzbekistan. And what is, in fact, we've had it for now more than 20 years. And in fact, what we have here is something which was without any limit. But what was decided after in 2018 was that EU and Uzbekistan, and both in fact wanted to sort of enhance the partnership and deepen the relationship and strengthen the ties which exist to work on exactly new cooperation titles. And so what we have is we have 5 main titles in this one. And the first one is about the political and political reform. It is about democracy. This is about our common and shared values. This is about human rights, and this is the very strong human dimension. We also have foreign and security policy, where there are discussions in international relations, the importance of the international relations and working together on these. There's also justice, freedom and security, because in fact we all have questions about migration. We have questions about in the sphere of freedom and justice, which we can work on together. We have, in fact, possibilities of working together. And then we have the trade agreement, which is it's about the trade relations. It's about enhancing the regulatory framework for trade, and this is really important also. This is a big part of the agreement. And then last but not least, we've introduced new sectors in which we will also be working together. And this can go from all the policies that we have in the EU. We have a lot of policies which are, you name it. I mean, we have transport, we have energy, we have a number of our joint policies, but also things like consumer policy, which is really important. And where we believe that this is really important is that this is where we can strengthen the ties, enhance our cooperation in terms of dialogue, but it also enhances our exchange in terms of experiences, of competences, of know-how, where we can exchange between ourselves and see how we can jointly work together in the future. So the reason why we're doing this is that we have also built up trust, yes, and the fact that we've had when the negotiations started in 2018, the idea was also to update what we have from before, because this was not the same situation that we had in 1996. Now we had, in fact, reforms. We had a willingness to also to move forward. President Mirziёev also had showed that there was this openness also to move forward and to build the trust and the confidence. And what this agreement also brings is, in fact, a framework which will also bring trust, and we believe that this will bring trust for investors. This will bring trust for people who are looking at Uzbekistan, that there is this enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. And this is really important, because this is really a basis for working, moving forward with the reforms and supporting the reforms of which are happening also in Uzbekistan.
And if you look at this new cooperation framework, do you think it might impact EU development assistance to Uzbekistan? So will the priorities of the development assistance change, or they are going to be the same?
The priorities, in fact, that we have in what we have already, in fact, a program of ODA, a program of development, which is in fact a new one, but it's completely aligned with the principles and with the norms, the standards, which are also in the enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. What we have built on is a common, let's say, a joint wish to work on certain areas, and this, in fact, we're not changing. We just have a multi-annual indicative program which was adopted. It was adopted last year, in fact, end of last year, and what we will be focusing on in the next 7 years is exactly what we've discussed also with Uzbekistan the last 2-3 years. And what does that mean? That means that we are now investing, and we are now supporting the Uzbek government in implementing some of the reforms that the Uzbek government wanted to work on with us. And the main priorities where we want to work, and these are joint priorities that we've had in consultation with the Uzbek government, is effective governance. It's about digitalization. It's about working, in fact, against the corruption. I mean, working on the fight against corruption. It's also about supporting the green transition. It's about supporting the strategy of the government, which has come out now also on working forward on the green transition, which is, I mean, extremely, as we all know, extremely important. And then the third thing is that we will continue work on agriculture. Agriculture is one of the sectors which is the most important for the country. It's creating a lot of jobs. The rural population is still 50%. And in fact, the growth also comes, a lot of the growth comes from here. So these, in fact, we can say that with the enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement, we will continue, in fact, also to support, but we have already widened our cooperation. Because before we used to only work on agriculture. This was our main, in fact, EU was known for this. We were working on the agricultural strategy, supporting the agricultural strategy and the reform, but we were mainly in that sector. But now, in fact, I mean, with this will from the President Mirziёev, but also the government to do a number of reforms, we have decided that together this is what we would like to work on. And I mean, for us, what is important is that this is also aligned. This is aligned to Uzbek priorities, but it's also aligned to our own priorities, EU priorities. Because in EU we also have a new policy, and we have something which is called the Green Deal. This is exactly, in fact, in good alignment with the green strategy of the government. So we can exchange, we can support. And this is what we're being asked to. We are being asked to very specific knowledge, competences in this sector. So this is what we can do, and this is what we're looking forward to do. We also been asked for, in fact, for example, knowledge in terms of fighting against corruption. This is something where the EU also, we're definitely very much looking forward also to work on this sector, because obviously, if you want to have a development of the country, if you want it to make sure that in fact no one is left behind, you have to make sure also that the development is for all, and that it's developing in a sustainable way. And this is why this green way, but effective and governance way, is exactly where we're happy to work. But what I should also say is that our strategy, in fact, in Europe, is also to work on job creation in Europe. And this is, job creation, looking at migration questions, looking at job creation, looking at, in fact, the question of gender. These are also questions that these are also our priorities in Europe. And this is where, in fact, we also see why we have the EPCA and why we are strengthening our cooperation, because we have somehow the same goals. And for Uzbekistan, I think the cooperation that we have with the EU is that we have a lot of, in fact, experience as well. The EU, we look like we are one, but in fact we have the richness we have 27 member countries. We have one framework for many of our policies, but we have 27 different and diversity and a richness in diversity of our capacities also. So this is also what we're looking at. We're looking at using all the experiences we have. I'll give you an example. The President Mирзиёева is very interested also in vocational and education training, and we agree this is really important. In particular now, we have 600,000 young people coming into the labor market every year. You need to create jobs, but you also need to have the right, in fact, skills. And this is really important, that we can also support, in fact, this in this direction, because in EU we have different systems, but we also have what we call the European Training Foundation, which is looking at the different systems, how to, in fact, make sure that the skills are well developed and are in accordance with the needs of the private sector, of the labor market, not only of the private sector, of the labor market in general. And this is what we're trying to connect. In fact, we're trying to make sure that when we have a request from the government, when we have a request for competences, for knowledge, then we try to find the best match. And this is what we're doing in many sectors. And then, in fact, maybe one thing I also wanted to talk a little bit about is that within the question of job creation, together with the question of green and sustainable development, we've been working a lot also with some of our partner organizations, not only with our member states, not only with their agencies, but also with other partners, the UN partners, the World Bank. And I think, for example, now we're also working with our own banks, the European Investment Bank, with the AFD, which is the bank, the Agence Française de Développement. We're definitely working also on seeing how we can support the afforestation in the Aral Sea, and this is we're doing it with the government, of course, and looking how we can make sure that the catastrophe which you've had in Aral Sea, that somehow there is a possibility to mend this. To find solutions and see how we can help afforestation. The president also wants to plant a lot of trees, and this is an opportunity. But also look at irrigation, and then see how this can bring also agriculture, so that there is a possibility to help the livelihoods and getting back to agriculture in places where you might for years not have had much because of the impact of the Aral Sea catastrophe.
Nowadays, as we know, Uzbekistan, like many other countries in Central Asia or post-Soviet area, is coping with the consequences of the sanctions imposed on Russia after the war in Ukraine has begun. Does new EPCA consider any sort of help with sanctions situation, Or if you talk in general, what kind of support can Uzbekistan expect from European Union in this situation?
This is a very good question, and in fact, I'm very happy that you're asking it. I think maybe, if you allow me, I'll have to clarify a little bit our position on this. The situation which we have today is not, in fact, it's not the consequence of the sanctions. In fact, the difficult situation in which many countries are is not due to the sanctions. In fact, what we have is we have a war going on, and we have an integral, the integrity of a territory which has been attacked, and we have there's a breach of in fact international rules, a multilateral system. There is a threat, in fact, to the integrity of Ukraine, but not only. In fact, this is really bringing threat to not only Ukraine but also Europe, but maybe also the world in terms of, and why not Uzbekistan, in terms of the rules have been broken. And so the impact that we see today in terms of prices, in terms of volatility rate prices, in terms of food security in the world is not due to the sanctions. It's due to, in fact, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So this is really, for me, this is really important that this is clear. The other thing is definitely, yes, there is suffering, in fact, in terms of food security, and definitely this is also something that is not due to the sanctions. It's due to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. The sanctions are there, and unfortunately they're also structural. We know that this is not something that you put in sanctions and then you lift them again, because there's a reason for them to be there. The sanctions are not against Uzbekistan. They're not against Russia in general. They're not against agriculture in Russia or agriculture sector in Russia. They're against the Russian regime, the people around Putin himself. They're against the people who are doing the war, in fact. And this is really important. We are not targeting neither the Russians or neither other countries. This is really important, that we're trying to find a way of making this war stop. And this is really important. What we're doing about it, and this is just to say, this is a crisis for many countries. And we've had crisis, a number of challenges and crises for the last years, and we've never let any countries down. We've had COVID, we've had, in fact, even financial crisis. Every time we've been stepping in, and for COVID we stepped in very highly, and now we're also stepping in to support, in fact, the countries which are impacted by in fact, the impact of the war in Ukraine. Now, what we are doing from our side, what we can do, and what we are doing is, first of all, we are making aware of what the sanctions are, and I've had, and even in Brussels as well, there has been meetings to explain and to make aware of what the sanctions are about. Because if you don't know what the sanctions are, then it's also possible that, without knowing, that you in fact circumvent the sanctions. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants this. And we know, we've also been told by our partners in the government that there's no intention at all, in fact, to circumvent the sanctions. And we're very, this is really important, that there is not any intention to do this. We understand that this situation is difficult, in particular also for Uzbekistan, because there is such a reliance on Russia, on the export, import, on the route, on the migrants. This is, we understand this fully, and we, of course, we want to support and see how we can help finding alternatives. One of the things, for example, I just mentioned the question of programs, of cooperation and development programs, and we have already, I've already said also that, for example, job creation programs, repurposing some of our programs to help and to support with creating more jobs, with GSP Plus, as you know, is also something that, trying to find other ways of exporting. Apart from awareness raising, information about the sanctions, also we are also ready to set up task force to make sure that we I mean that we have also a team in Brussels working on the sanctions and explaining and with frequently asked questions and trying to advise, in fact, the governments around the world also on how to deal with the sanctions. And then apart from also helping with development programs, with projects, we also have a connectivity conference, which is an EU Central Asia conference on connectivity, which will be happening in Samarkand. And we are very happy that Uzbekistan is hosting it, and because I believe that this is going to be an important event, with an idea, in fact, now that this is about also a possibility, in fact, of creating alternatives. So we know the reliance on the Russian routes, because we know that the products are going through Russia. We know that Uzbekistan is looking also for alternative routes. And one of them is, might be to Europe. So this is also what we're looking at, a transport route, or this is one thing. There's also an opportunity in the digital sphere. We definitely want to give the opportunity also to develop maybe in fact a broadband also, and see how we can ensure that in fact this information flow can also go towards Europe instead of going towards other directions. A third one is about the connectivity in environment, on water, energy, and discussing these questions. And this is an opportunity, in fact, for us also to together and to see, and because we know that this is a problem, we know this is a challenge, and the question is, can we find solutions and open up for opportunities together? So this is how we are working on finding, in fact, solutions to the challenges that this is posing.
You mentioned GSP plus preferences system in your answer. So I was meaning to ask, GSP plus preferences, as we are told by the officials, has been resulting in the growth of trade volume between the European Union and Uzbekistan. For example, it was mentioned that exports from Uzbekistan to EU increased for 86% in the last year. While GSP Plus opens vast opportunities for businesses, there are at the same time requirements for both governments and businesses, such as implementing core international conventions on human and labor rights, protection of environment, climate, and good governance. From your perspective, are there any main areas that need improvement for both the government and businesses in order to be able to gain more benefits from GSP Plus?
I have to say that when I arrived last year in March, I was very lucky to see Uzbekistan granted GSP Plus on 10th of April. So I just had the opportunity to sort of arrive and then and see this come into effect, which is, I think it's an incentive which is amazing. Because it gives the opportunity for exporters, for Uzbek exporters, to export to Europe. A total of, I think it's 6,200 products to Europe without paying any taxes. So this is really important. I think it's even more important today when you have lots of challenges that are in the trade system. It's true. In fact, it's increased a lot. If I'm not completely wrong, it's more than 430 million now million euro worth exports towards Europe, which I also saw in 2019. It was much less. It was not even 200. So there's really been a big increase. But we also know that. Okay, this is only the first year, but we also definitely know that there are possibilities also for increasing the trade flow and the opportunities for the export. Uzbek exporters need to be enhanced because it's not used to its full potential. We see this. There are much more that can be done to increase the use of the GSP Plus system. So the question is, how can we do this? And I think there are different ways of doing it. One thing is that I'm not sure, in fact, that people, that exporters necessarily know a lot about it. And I hear, in fact, sometimes that there are trucks arriving to the borders of Europe and not mentioning that in fact this is GSP plus, so they're paying taxes, and where they shouldn't have. They would have been it was not needed to pay taxes, but they do because they're not aware of it. So there's something that definitely, I mean, we all need to work together with the government, us, and together with our member states, together with, of course, with the private sector, try to see ways of how we can inform about the GSP plus system and how we can make sure that it's used to its full potential. Of course, I mean, there's also what I've seen since I've been here, and this is something which is also really important for increasing the potential, is that we've also had a lot of products which have been sent. Some products have come back, and because there was a problem with, and GSP plus is, I mean, the European market is a very in fact, it's a big market, a lot of consumers, a lot of requests also for dried fruits, for beans, for lots of products, for textiles, but it's a very demanding market, and there are in fact standards that need to be upheld, and this is really important, because if there are problems with the phytosanitary, if there's too much pesticide on something, it's sent back, because there are in fact checks, and that means that, and that's a pity, because it's gone, but then it comes back, and then we don't want this. So this is something where we need to work together also with the Ministry of Agriculture, and we are working together, working on laboratories, I mean, working on making sure that the exporters, in fact, that the products that are exported are up to the standards. And maybe let me also say that, I mean, sometimes people say, oh, but these are barriers. But look, these are standards that we are ensuring for European consumers. And in fact, to be honest, I also think that this is important also for Uzbek consumers. This is not only for European consumers, but it's important that we make sure that the products which are sold, wherever they are sold, being it in Europe or being it in Uzbekistan, are safe and are good for people. That this is something that we definitely need to work maybe more on, and make sure that the farmers, the textile producers, this is maybe something I will come in also, that the farmers are aware of what is, I mean, what kind of standards there are, and the phytosanitary standards are upheld. Maybe one thing also is that one of the things where I was very happy also to witness was, of course, the lifting of the cotton campaign. And this is one, I mean, the GSP plus system is a system where on one side you get access to the market free of charge, let's say free of taxes, but it's an incentive for implementing 27 conventions, as you mentioned yourself, in many of the, I mean, also the labor, but also environment and human rights and political, economic, cultural rights and things like that. Now, one of the big successes of last year, I think, was that forced labor and child labor was in fact eradicated, as we see. And we, EU, I mean, we worked with other partners, I mean, other embassies also, and other partners, the World Bank, I mean, the US, the Swiss, I mean, we worked with many to make sure that there was a monitoring also going on with civil society. And I have to say that this is also really important. This is really important also for the European buyers, in fact, to increase the export of, for example, textile products in the future. This is really important to know, that there is more and more demand. The market in Europe is full of clients, but they are very demanding, both in terms of the quality, but also in terms of where is it coming from. I mean, who is working? How are the working conditions of people working to make this? So this is important as well. This is something that it's not always like just sending something. It's also the quality. It's the quality of the product, and it's quality of the way it's been produced. And I strongly believe that with all the reforms which are going on now, that this is in fact a good opportunity. There are opportunities. It's an alternative. And we know that many of the agriculture projects are now going, in fact, to the Russian market, but there's also the European market. So this is also something that can be worked on. Yes.
One of the frameworks, actually, of dialogue in the region EU prefers is multilateral meetings with participation of all Central Asian countries. I wanted to ask, will European Union be assisting countries of Central Asia to deepen regional cooperation even more?
Their cooperation among themselves. This is something, in fact, we've been working on for a number of years, and in fact, I think we have what we call the EU Central Asian strategy, which I also had the opportunity to see coming into effect. I mean, we had a former, in fact, a former strategy from 2007, and then we had the one that was done and led up to the new strategy in 2018. The strategy, what it says is it's not only about our links, it's also about the resilience and the prosperity of the region. And I think, in fact, as the European Union, this is exactly what we are. We have been working together. We have this experience also on how to join, to get together and to work on, in fact, also on prosperity and resilience and peace, of course. And we're always ready, in fact, to support Central Asia also in working on this. What I see is that there is definitely, and just to say, since President Mirziёev has come in with a new foreign policy, which is, we've also seen it also with the new constitution, which is really, also looking at being in good neighborly relations and having good neighbors and keeping the peace. We had a meeting today also where this was really important, that this is in the new constitution. And yes, this is exactly what makes it possible also to support, if there is a wish, in fact, to continue and to deepen the regional cooperation. What we're doing on our side is that we have for a long time been working with regional programs, which was exactly for supporting a regional cooperation. We've had something which was called, which is called BUMCA, which is a program on borders, the border management program in Central Asia. We have something about Central Asia, something about drugs, Central Asian Drug Action Program. These are programs where, in fact, you make people at the borders work together. This is really important because these are the ones that are making it fluid between the borders, making it possible for people to cross the borders, and thereby also creating links between people. And in fact, this is what we had in Europe. We created links between people to make sure that, we would deepen, in fact, our cooperation between the countries. This is exactly how Europe was set up. It was by, creating links between France and Germany and the Belgium and Luxembourg and these countries which had been, in fact, in war, in World War II. We created these links and then started working also on cross-border cooperation, and then it came up also more and more into something which looked like what we have today, a bigger entity with more cooperation and more an integrated entity. So definitely we're working on this. And we continue to want to work on this in the future. As you will remember, last year there was a big international connectivity conference which was organized by Uzbekistan. And the idea was also to follow up also with the EU Central Asia Connectivity Conference and really look at what can we, how can we connect. And this is, we have what we call the global strategy, and the idea is really to make the connections, but also to ensure that, in fact, this is not only about connecting, but it's also about I mean, it's about also standards and values, definitely. And in this case, this is important also. The process towards the conference is really important. We're now working together with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also we also have now, in fact, for the next 3 days, we have a high-level visit from Brussels to also meet with the ministries, the Ministry of Transport, the Ministry of ICT, I mean the ministry, the different ministries who will be involved and who can participate in the conference. Because the idea is really to have discussions about how to work on the digital, making it something which is not only, it's not only the truba, it's not only, this is about also human beings, this is about people, connecting the people, giving them the opportunity. For example, let me give you an example on the digital. The digital is not only about the broadband, it's also about what can it bring in terms of in fact using it for education, using it for data, using it for making sure that there is an opportunity to get all the information that and all the knowledge that you wish to have from the European countries, and vice versa, because we can also learn a lot from this part of from Central Asia. So this is an opportunity to link. The same in terms of the transport corridor, important to see now that there is a need also to find other ways of getting trade out of the country. Now we're looking at, for us, what we're looking at is making sure that that the trade can go through what we call the middle corridor, which is really going through Azerbaijan, and in fact, from here, Kazakhstan, the Caspian Sea, and then Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey. So seeing what are the difficulties that you have, why has it become so expensive, and what can we do to make sure, practical ways of making this possible and making this affordable, accessible for export to the European Union and other regions. And then on the environment and on energy, on water, and this is really important, because we know, Central Asia is prone to climate change challenges, and this is again a possibility to work on together, in fact, on finding, in fact, on supporting and finding solutions. So again, this is what we will be meeting with a number of ministries and making sure that they will then also work with their Central Asian ministers from Central Asia, and that this becomes something that we jointly look at and try to see how we can find solutions to the challenges that have appeared and that are there, and then making the connection, really, connecting, using all the opportunities that exist.
You mentioned that European Union, one of the priority areas would be helping with the reforms. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, what would you point out, one or two main areas mm-hmm. that Uzbekistan need to consider mm-hmm. ongoing with the reforms?
I think, in fact, development and sustainable development, because I also see, the goal, the objective, the main objective, as I understand, is really to, halve poverty by 2026, and then get up to a upper middle income country, with this idea of, as I see also, with this idea of sustainable development and sustainable development goals. This is really important for us as well, because it's including. Making sure that everybody is on board, that no one is left behind, that we've had, Uzbekistan all over the world with COVID, we've lost some years, and we've had difficulties and economic difficulties, but then, of course, this goes on to people. So I think, in fact, for the future, the ideas and the strategies are good. And there are many of them. We see the green transition, we see the agriculture, we see the privatization, we see education, And I mean, I will not. I mean, we see many more, and there. In fact, I think in all the sectors I see there are excellent ideas and excellent strategies for reform. And I think what is important is that they go forward. This is really important, and that they continue. So that, I mean, that it's not only staying at the strategy level, but definitely that it's also implemented. What I can say is that what we've seen in agriculture, because this is where the sector where we've been for the longest time, and where we've definitely been participating a lot with also with supporting the design of the strategy. What we've seen there is, I mean, it's been moving a lot. I mean, we've seen that the agriculture sector has in fact changed. I mean, we've gone from a lot of cotton to more diverse. I mean, more. We've seen the same as I was saying before. We've seen a system where a lot of more privatization in the. I mean, you can choose what's a bit more what you can do. We've seen forced labor before, and in fact even child labor. So this has also changed. So there are lots of changes. I'm not going to mention all of them, but there are lots of changes which have come in. We've been supporting this, and we want to continue to support this. For example, I mean, the idea of, again, I mean, we have this knowledge, agriculture knowledge information centers and systems. That this is an idea also of the ministry, and we'd like to support this, because this is about, you know, making sure that the smallholders are connected with the services they need, but also connected also together with the research, so that you get, in fact, and then connected with the markets, and that they know what is, in fact, what can be, that the value chain is sort of made sustainable as well, and developed. And this is important. Why? Because, as we mentioned in the beginning, agriculture is one of the sectors where you have most people working. It's also important that it produces good quality. I strongly believe that some of the reforms in education are extremely important, because this is the basis for any society to really move forward, to develop well. It's education. That's really, there's no way around it. And this is not something that I'm saying. This is, I mean, research also shows that without good education, a good education system, a vocational education training, good system, making sure that it's also connected, of course, with the labor markets. In fact, I mean, this is the basis. This is really important. And then last thing I also want to highlight, which is I've also seen, even since I've been here, a lot of traction and a lot of focus on the question of gender. And I think this is half of the population. I just saw the other day that there are a bit more men than women, but it's still, I mean, the difference is very very low. And women can support. And women are, I still remember having heard that in some of the European countries, in fact, the chair of, the president of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, was saying, you can increase your GDP by 1 or 2 points if you make sure that women are active participants in the economy and in the society. I think this is really important, that women are participating, and this is what we are seeing as well. That there is this will. But there are still there's challenges for women, and I think this is really important that there is a continuation. And I see there's so much will to do it. We have the chairman of the Mrs. Nabaeva, who was very active on this, and I think this is really important that this is supported, and we will support this as well. This is. Everybody should have access, and everybody should be part of, and everybody should be empowered, being it men or women. But it's really important that the women can participate. So this is something that I really think is important for the future of Uzbekistan.
When you became EU ambassador to Uzbekistan, Did you set any specific goals you would like to achieve as a result of your mission in the country?
Mm-hmm. So for me, when I arrived, I was already told that what is important is really to deepen, also strengthen the relationship between EU and Uzbekistan. Not that it was not good, but it was in particular, of course, working and supporting the EPCA finalization of the enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. And that was as ambassador, that was one of my tasks, and I was really happy that this was happening, and this was something that I could support. I think my other goal was, of course, also to make sure that we're talking a lot about agreements. I mean, GSP plus. We're talking a lot about, often about with a European or even I would say a government jargon. We have these words about policy and sustainable development goals, and this is really important. This was also my goal, is to work on this. But also my idea was to try to see how can we make sure that also people understand what EU is and what EU can do, and what EU stands for also in Uzbekistan. And this maybe comes from my former, the countries where I was in before, because this is really something that when we have this possibility to explain what we stand for and what we can provide and what we can help with and what we can support with, then also there is much more possibilities for finding the right matches and for helping, in fact, out on the sustainable development agenda. For me, as not as an ambassador, but maybe also as a person, was really to make sure that I stay connected also with civil society, with people who are working in the civil society, with youth, with women, having direct contact, and not only being, EU ambassador and not being able to meet with people and to discuss and to understand better what the reality, in fact, is. And another thing, and this is, I was very happy when I had the opportunity also to meet with President Mирзиёев in the beginning. He told me, you have to go to all the regions. I haven't managed to go to all the regions, but I fully agree that this is important because the country is vast. It's got the regions are different, and the people are often, have also sometimes also different ways of ideas and different traditions, and you need to learn about it. For understanding the whole country, you definitely need to also visit and see what it is that you're talking about.
Your Excellency, you have been in Uzbekistan for almost 1.5 years already. So I was thinking to ask, could you please share your thoughts on what you liked the most here so far and what you didn't really enjoy here during your stay?
So I have to say that what I like the most is, in fact, the hospitality. That's one thing, but also the energy. I am amazed by the energy of people. Being it, the youth. The creativity of young people. I've seen some of the projects, but also women, young women, elder women. Working on vocational education training for everyone. I am amazed. But also in the government, there is such an energy in making things move. This will to move forward, which I really, really appreciate. Because, to be honest, most of my time is a lot about it's a lot about work. It's a lot about visiting. It's a lot about. So this is really important for me also, that I have that there is this energy that also gives me energy to also continue and to work and to create the links that are needed. So this is the great part of it. I love this energy. what I would like to see more is, in fact, it's maybe more bicycles, more public transport, and definitely I know that there is this idea of having more electric buses, and I think this is a great idea. I also heard that there will be trams in 2023. This is also great because this is good for the environment, and Tashkent remains a beautiful green city, and it's good to have more also green public transport and bicycles. I mean, definitely, I think this is also a good alternative to cars, and this is what I would definitely suggest for an improvement in the city. More bicycles.
Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for this interview again.
Thank you very much for this. Kata rahmat.